Yo, what's up, everyone? This is Terry bringing you guys another show today. I got a lot of cool things to go over. So, as always, if you like the show, leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. So, we're going to start off today with some of the Ohio State players met with the media. Now, I didn't check out all of them, but there was some interesting things that I heard from a couple of the guys. So, I'm going to go over that. I want to get into some hot takes of mine for the Indiana game coming up this weekend. And then finally, I have some score predictions. I'm not going to do Ohio State today because I'm going to do that tomorrow with a preview of the game. But I'm going to go over some mostly Big Ten teams and then I think one non-Big Ten game that's tonight with Florida and Utah. So let's go ahead and get into the show here. As I said, the first thing that I wanted to talk about, was the Ohio State players that met with the media. So the first thing, Lathan Ransom met with the media, and Lathan's going to be a staple guy on the defense. It looks like he's going to be playing that strong safety position. One of the most interesting things that he said was that he's up to 210 pounds. Now, I like that for him personally because I think that what we're going to get this year is we'll have that typical strong safety body type, and then a guy in the back at like the free safety position that's more of your quicker ball hawk kind of guy. So I mean, hopefully that'll work out, and the defense that'll make the defense better, and they can do some different things with Lathan that they couldn't do last year because they have a guy behind him who will be better in coverage. And that was really it that I thought was super interesting from what he had to say. The next guy that talked to the media was Mike Hall. Now he had a lot of cool things to say. Mike Hall, we expect him to have a big season this year. I know I do. Um, the first thing he said when he was out there, one of the first things was that he's back to his old self, which we've seen just a little bit of that last year. He even referenced the Notre Dame game, which he was kind of going crazy in, getting tackles for loss, getting after the quarterback. So hopefully we could see more of that this year. He did say that he embraced his vocal leadership on the D line, which that's awesome to see from a guy who's now a junior, probably his last year here. Sorry about that. It's probably his last year at Ohio State because I mean I think he's going to be an NFL player. I think he's going to head out after this year. Another thing he said was that he lost body fat over the off season. He said he went from 23% body fat down to 19, which is awesome. Now I was worried when I first heard that because he's the guy who I was a little worried about being undersized to play that defensive line position. But he said now he's back up to 283 pounds, which during training camp, word had came out that he was down to like I think 275, something like that. So he said that was just for training camp. He's back up to 283, and he looks good. He looks stout. So I'm expecting a big year from him. And then kind of his closing statement, he was asked about a couple guys on the defensive line and how they've improved this year. Obviously, he didn't go into details, but he said these guys are savages and dogs, and they're bringing the heat. I mean, I don't know what else you want to hear about your defensive line. That's exactly what I want to see from them. So hopefully, that's what we get. Um, that was it for what Mike Hall had to say. The next one that I thought was interesting was Travion Henderson. As I always say, I'm expecting him to have a huge year this year. I expect him to be maybe the top back in the Big Ten, top two, top three, something along those lines. He was the number one running back coming out of high school, so he definitely can have a huge year. Now, when he talked about last year, he was talking about how he was hurt, and he actually mentioned that he heard some of the outside noise, heard some of the things that people had to say about him, and that it did bother him mentally. You don't really hear players talk about that too much. I think it's best for them to probably just not pay attention because, listen, as fans, we're going to say what we got to say. And I know that the players are human, but at the same time, you're in that position. You need to handle that accordingly and not be focused on what people have to say on social media because everyone can have someone say something terrible to them on social media. You just need to ignore it. Just move on. But the most important thing that he said most interesting thing that Travion Henderson said, in my opinion, was that he was only able to practice one time per week last year in the weeks that he actually played. So to me, that's crazy. I think that he probably just shouldn't even have been playing, and then we wouldn't even have heard any of this. I'm not sure why they would have tried to try him out there with only practicing one time a week. But I mean, it showed in his game. He even was talking about like his vision. He said that just comes with practice. He said when you're not practicing, it's hard to have that vision. So I mean, overall, I think that's a good thing from him because he's basically saying like, "Oh, that's back. I'm back to, you know, freshman year, and I've also gotten a lot better." So, I'm expecting a big year from him. So that's going to do it for the segment just regarding what the players had to say to the media. I think a couple other guys like Josh Fryer, Donovan Jackson met with the media, but I didn't get a chance to check that out yet. So I'm going to move on to the Indiana game for Ohio State. So I wanted to give some of my hot takes. People call them bold predictions, whatever you want to call it. It's kind of outlandish things that I think could possibly happen that are unlikely to happen. So if you want to roast me for them, do it in the comments. But let's get into what I got here. So I only have 5 of them. My number one is going to be actually about the guy we were just talking about, TreVeyon Henderson. So I think TreVeyon Henderson is going to run for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns in this game. I think that he's been itching to get back on the field and be healthy doing it. I think that they're going to lean on him because of the quarterback situation they have going on, the quarterback battle, first-time starter, all that good stuff. The offensive line is new. They haven't played an actual game together yet with this group. So, as an offensive lineman want to run the ball because they can just reach out, get their hands on somebody, and they can, push people around instead of having to worry about different blitzes and things like that. My next prediction on here is going to be neither quarterback, nor Kyle McCord nor Devin Brown, is going to throw for over 200 yards. Now, I mean, that's not super crazy because they're supposedly going to be splitting time. Ryan Day said that Devin Brown is going to play. I expect to see Devin Brown in the first half. If we don't, then I think that we'll have our answer for sure that Kyle McCord is the guy that Ryan Day wants to go with going forward. But if we see Devin Brown in the first half, it just kind of confirms what I think based on his press conference, which is the quarterback battle is still going on. Ryan Day let Kyle McCord go first because he's been more consistent the last week or whatever he said, like the last 10 days. So I can't wait to see how that plays out. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be super fun to watch. The next one that I have here is Ohio State makes a field goal of at least 45 yards. So Ohio State has a new field goal kicker this year. I think his name is Jaden Fielding. He was the guy that was doing the kickoffs last year. I know mentioning a long field goal can be hurtful to Ohio State fans after what happened against Georgia, but I think that if Ohio State gets in a position this week where they're at where it'll be about a 45-yard field goal, fourth down comes, it's like 4th and 6, something like that. I think Ryan Day is going to roll him out there and let him kick it, let him get some game reps. It's a big time field goal in front of a crowd, and it's an away game. So hopefully that'll happen. That'll be awesome to see if he does, and kind of see where our kickers are at with that. And then my fourth hot take for the Indiana game is going to be Jack Sawyer has 3 sacks. Now, that's huge for one game. I also look at Jack Sawyer as someone who is itching to get out there and get after the quarterback. After last year, he did a lot of things like dropping back into coverage or kind of like taking on blocks within that jack position. I think that with his hand back in the dirt, I think he's going to get out there and get after the quarterback. And I think my favorite thing about Jack Sawyer is that when he hits you, when he hits someone, he hits them hard. I don't know. Some of the hardest hits that we've seen were from Jack Sawyer, and I mean, I expect to continue seeing that from him. So sorry about that. Let me turn that off. All right, and then the last one here. This is going to be the most outlandish, but it's possible. I expect Ohio State's defense to be really good this year, and I'm going to say that Ohio State's defense outscores Indiana's offense in this game. So I think we see like a pick 6, fumble recovery for a touchdown, maybe even 2. We'll see. But I really think that they're going to be all over Indiana's offense, and they're going to be trying to shut them down. I think Jim Knowles made really good adjustments to stop giving up big plays. Again, we won't know until we see it, but that's the optimistic side of me. I think that's what's going to happen. So that's going to do it for my hot take section of the segment here. So I'm going to move on to the last thing. I wanted to predict some final scores for some football games that are coming up. It's going to be mostly Big Ten oriented, But I have one game in here, like I said before, the Florida Utah game. That game is tonight. We got college football today and for the next 5 days in a row. So that's super exciting. So we'll go ahead and start with that one. The games that are tonight. The first one's going to be Florida versus Utah. So these teams played last year. Florida won. I'm going to go ahead and take Florida to win this game again. I'm going to say the score will be about 28-17. Some of the biggest reasons why I'm saying that, Utah's quarterback, Cam Rising, is expected not to play, I believe. I don't know. They've been trying to keep it under wraps, but a lot of things are coming out that he's probably not going to be playing. And then Florida has Graham Mertz, who transferred from Wisconsin. Now, Graham Mertz was actually a highly rated quarterback coming out of high school. He didn't look too great at Wisconsin, but he also wasn't terrible. And the offense at Wisconsin was atrocious overall. I mean, they have their running game, but you know their passing game, the way it's coordinated, is not the best. So I think Graham Mertz is going to be a decent quarterback for Florida. They got crazy athletes down there, and I think that they're going to get that first win. The next one is also another game that we have tonight, which is going to be Nebraska versus Minnesota. This game is super interesting to me just because Nebraska has a brand new head coach. They had Scott Frost for so long. He had them barely losing almost every game somehow. That team first was within one score of winning and lost almost every game in his whole time there. But I think that their new coach, Matt Rhule, is going to be a really good coach, and they brought in Jeff Sims from Georgia Tech, who I think is going to be a dynamic athlete and is going to really help the run game to where they can run like read options, they can run some RPO type stuff. I think Nebraska is going to be a pretty good team. I'm not predicting them to be like a college football playoff team or anything like that, but I definitely think they're going to at least make a bowl game, and they'll maybe get over the hump of some of those one-score losses that they had, and they'll get a couple wins out of those. The next game I'm going to discuss here is going to be Iowa versus Utah State. So Iowa is another interesting team to discuss because their offense was atrocious last year. A lot of that had to do with quarterback play. A lot of that had to do with the offensive coordinator. But they kept the offensive coordinator, the head coach's son, and I think he's on a stipulation where he has to score at least 27 points a game or something like that. Excuse me. If he wants to keep his job. But Iowa did actually bring in some good players, though. I mean, they brought in Eric All from Michigan, Caleb Brown from Ohio State, and Kay McNamara from Michigan. Kay McNamara, he's a good game managing type quarterback who's typically not going to lose you a game. I don't know if he's playing, though. I think there was some question of whether he was going to play or not. So my score prediction on this one is Iowa over Utah State 42-7. That's based on Kay McNamara playing. If he doesn't, I'm going to go ahead and just knock their score down a little bit and say like maybe 30-7, something like that. I do think Iowa's defense will probably score a touchdown to help them out here. But when you're adding a tight end and a quarterback from Michigan and a wide receiver from Ohio State, that can only help your offense. I expect them to take steps forward. The next game I'm going to discuss here is going to be Michigan versus East Carolina. I'm not spending time on this. One, because it's Michigan. Two, because it's East Carolina. They're going to win 52-10. It'll be a great start for them and get their season rolling, and they'll have almost every game to start off their season, like 3 or 4 games where it'll be super easy wins like this. The next one I'm going to get into is Wisconsin. Wisconsin's another team that I'm super interested in seeing this year because they have Luke Fickell. Luke Fickell is affiliated with Ohio State, coached at Ohio State, went out to Cincinnati, took Cincinnati all the way to the college football playoffs. And I mean, even when they made it, I think they lost like 28-7 or something like that to Alabama. I mean, their defense was decent. Their offense was never going to keep up with a team like Alabama. But they made it to the playoffs that year. I think they beat Notre Dame and Indiana. I mean, those are Power 5 teams, and Luke Fickell had his team ready to play. And, they showed up throughout the entire year. So I really think that him being at Wisconsin, they're going to be a problem. They brought in a bunch of transfer quarterbacks. I think the one that's going to be starting is Tanner Mordecai. I'm going to take a guess. I think he transferred from SMU. That could not be factually accurate. We'll have to look that one up. But anyway, they brought in a quarterback who was doing pretty well last year. I think Wisconsin's going to win this game over Buffalo, 38-7. I think their defense is going to be really good too because Lou Fickell is a defensive guy, and Wisconsin's defense has always been good. So the last game I want to talk about here, I'm going to pick my crazy upset of the week right here. It's going to be Penn State versus West Virginia. Penn State is a team that a lot of people are hyping up this year. They're going to be really good. Their defense is solid. They returned a whole bunch of people. Um, I expect big things out of Penn State this year, and I expect like halfway through the year, about the time when they play Ohio State, Michigan, things like that, I expect this team to be really, really good. Now, they also have a brand new quarterback who he did play a decent amount last year in Drew Aller, but he's going to be his first time starting a big time game like this. And I think that Penn State's going to ultimately lose this game to West Virginia 31-29. All right. Again, I could see it going the opposite way. If Penn State just out athletes them and is just better, then I could see it going the opposite way where Penn State will maybe pull away from and win this game. But I think that West Virginia is a team that's good for an upset every now and then. Penn State is, they're still a young team. I mean, a lot of their production, a lot of their best players are sophomores. Um, their recruiting class from a couple years ago had to be really good. You have guys like Abdul Carter, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen. Those are all really good players. They're still young. They have some time. They have a season under their belt. But in a big time first game like this, I'm sticking to it. Like I said, it's my crazy upset of the week. West Virginia 31-29. And that's where we're gonna wrap the show up today. I'm gonna leave you with that. Have a good day. I'm out.